Hello, and welcome to today's episode of Her Version. This podcast is dedicated to sharing stories of struggle to triumph, a platform that allows individuals to tell their truth in order to inspire and uplift others. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria. If you are new to this podcast, make sure you follow, like, subscribe, and share. Let's jump right in. Hello. It is Thursday. It is almost the end of the week. I certainly hope that you guys have had a fantastic week. I have a guest speaker that is due to be with us soon. Her name is Tracy Hardin. I'm super excited to have her here joining us. She's running a little bit behind. So I kind of wanted to talk about exactly what Tracy and I are going to be talking about, which is narcissism. For those of you that know, the Her Version podcast was originally founded on the issue or the topic of narcissism. I came from a narcissistic abusive relationship. I saw that there was a great need for there to be more information, more education, more stories on what this looked like. And I created this platform. It's specifically entitled Her Version because there is obviously the victim, the person who's being abused, their version. And then there's, of course, the abuser's version. And they are two completely different versions of the story. So I uniquely called this Her Version. And I always say that if the abuser wants to make their own version of a podcast that talks about their side of the story, they are more than welcome. But here on this platform, we talk about the stuff. We talk about all of the things that happen to us while we are in the midst of a abusive relationship and what that looks like and why it is so frustrating and the trauma bonding that comes along with that. So I just got off the line with Nicole Severson, who has a podcast. Ooh, I don't remember the name of it, but it is brilliantly named. Something Shameless. And I can't find it. But anyways, Nicole Severson, amazing woman. We just did an interview together and she was, Sacred, Sexy, and Shameless. It's Sacred, Sexy, Shameless. And we were talking about the trauma bond. We were talking about how the trauma bond affects us and how we stay hooked to these people for way longer than we should, and what that looks like and why it takes us so long sometimes to get out of that relationship. And the trauma bond is just a cycle. It is a cycle of ups and downs. For those of you, I'm sure Tracy will be able to chime in on this. There's a roller coaster that we're put on of constant negativity, constant belittling. And then right when we're deciding that we're going to get our power back and we're going to bolt, we're going to leave, we're not going to take this anymore, all of a sudden, the abuser changes his tune. And he starts to do what's called love bombing and praises you and tells you that you're beautiful and you're great and you're fantastic and please don't leave and I love you and you're the only one. And it's this whole confusion thing that causes us to be bonded to our abusers because we're constantly waiting for that carrot to come at us. So I want to invite Miss Tracy here. Tracy is an amazing woman. She is here to tell her story of narcissistic abuse. She's going to be opening up about how it happened, the PTSD that followed, how she started to face her story in order to heal, and the faith, the hope, and realizing that she doesn't have to please everybody. And I think that's a huge thing when it comes to us as individuals, empaths. We have this pull to try to make everybody happy. So I thank you so much for being here and taking some time out of your day to sit down with us and talk about this subject that is just now starting to create traction. And it's thanks to people like you who are coming on and sharing their story. So how are you?
It's been a fun trip to get here. Oh, the weather's horrible here today, so the
Is it?
interstate was shut down.
Oh no! Wait, like horrible, like snow, or horrible, like cold?
No rain.
Rain.
Because I'm in Kentucky, where the tornadoes came through this eastern part. So I'm up north, but we've got another round of rain coming through. So.
Oh no! Oh no! Well, I'm glad that you're safe. I didn't even think about that. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, yeah. But thankfully, we didn't get hit here, so that's a good thing.
Awesome. Yes, for sure. Well, I so thank you for taking some time out of your day to sit with us, tell us your story, your journey, and where you are now mentally, emotionally, in order to give hope to individuals who are just now realizing that they might be living with a narcissist and they might have to leave and they might have to create an escape plan. So what I'd like to do, if you don't mind, is I'd kind of like to just open the floor to you. Ask you maybe how old you were when you first got married and what the journey was that kind of led you to your narcissist.
Yeah. So my first marriage, I was 23. We got divorced when I was 30. And so I ended up meeting a guy, right after my divorce, that little rebound person. And he come to find out he was married. So that kind of hit me really hard. And it brought up a lot of feelings of inadequacy and worthlessness from when I was younger. I was also a rape victim when I was 18. So it brought up a lot of that past history.
Absolutely.
So I was not in a really mentally healthy place when I ran into him at 31. And he just said all the right things and did all the right things. And yeah, it was just slowly backsliding.
100%. 100%. What were some of the first things that he did? Now looking back, you didn't know it at the time, but what were some of the first things that he did to kind of take your power away, take your confidence away?
He would actually make me kind of feel like I was crazy. I remember a moment when he showered with his cell phone and said that he had to go meet his buddy because he needed to drive him somewhere. And come to find out, he actually went and met his ex-wife somewhere and was out until like 4 a.m. So, but everything he would do, it was just slowly making me feel like it was all on my end. It was all in my head, and I was making these big deals out of nothing. And it was just those slow little digs that just kind of make you question yourself, all that self-doubt when you're already an empath as it is, and then you're added with the inadequacy and the lack of self-esteem and everything else, they prey on that, and they are really, really good at digging in there.
Exactly. Did you go into that with any children?
Yes, at the time I had 3 children.
Got it. Yeah. Did he was this like fast? Did you like kind of move in and become
Oh yes, it was very fast. So apparently when he and I met, he was still with his second wife.
Okay.
Who was at the time pregnant, and I did not know. I didn't find that out until after he moved in. So, he's like, I don't have a place to go. She kicked me out. So I had a house, and he moved in with me, and that was kind of where he set up shop. So,
did any of the exes try to contact you?
No.
Did you think about contacting them?
We were not on very good speaking terms because he had it in my head that it was all them, all her. It was, she wanted him back. She couldn't let him go. So, in my mind, it was, well, why would I want to talk to her? She's just trying to get my man back.
Yeah.
So, they prey on, they're good at that. They're good at that separation.
Absolutely. How long were you with him for?
6 years.
Really?
Yeah.
6 years. What were, some of the highlights, not highlights, but what were some of the real big things that he kind of really threw you for a doozy for?
Well, there's quite a few. There was finding a pair of women's underwear in the middle of our laundry room floor, where we lived there for maybe 2 months, and he's like, "Oh, that's from the previous renter." It's literally in the middle of my floor, and at that point in time in the relationship, I just didn't feel like fighting anymore because you could literally show him something and say, "Here, this is the proof," and he would deny it. So
Wow.
it was just easier just to say, "Okay, that's what happened." Took my bank card and was making charges and swore up and down it wasn't him. Uh, let's see. He had me dress in a shirt that um, I liked, but he bought for me. And we went out to the bar and then accused me of using that same shirt to flirt with his friend in front of him. Yeah. And then of course the big one with the his ex-wife, his second wife, had given me proof about 5 years in that he had been cheating on me the whole time. It
Wow.
was copies of letters.
No kidding. Sorry.
Yeah, oh, you're fine. And he's literally even faced with those. He said, "Oh, she forged all of those." And even facing him with those, he still denied and denied and denied. And it's like, how do you fight with that?
Exactly.
They break you down to the point where it's like you're making me go crazy trying to talk to you about this and deal with this, and that's another way they break you down.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, when did you actually figure out did you figure everything out after you had already left or while you were still in the relationship?
That he was a narcissist,
Yeah.
or actually it was after. It was like maybe a month later. I was
Okay.
listening to the radio and this commercial came on, and you're just kind of listening, running down the road, and they asked these 5 questions, and I was like, yes, and then I asked yes, and I answered yes to all 5, and then they said, if you answer to yes to any of these questions, you're a victim of mental abuse, and I was like, wait, what? I was just
Wow.
so floored and so taken aback from that because it was like I always saw myself as a very strong person, and then all of a sudden it's like, wait, how did that even happen?
Absolutely.
Wait. So as I dug more and read more, that's how I found out he was a narcissist, just from all the things that I had been through.
How did you feel after that? You must have felt like some relief maybe, like
I did. At least it made me know I wasn't crazy.
Yes.
Yeah, we're all a little crazy, but that's okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it kind of helped solidify the fact that it wasn't all in my head. It was truly things that I had seen their face value of, but didn't really realize what it was.
Absolutely. Wow. So you didn't know that you were necessarily being abused. You just knew that it wasn't working. So what was the turning point? What was the definitive, like, this is it? Like, this is so crazy.
Yeah, so my oldest son at the time was 10 when we got a call from the school psychologist telling us that he was suicidal. When I called him, and of course, at the time he was not working because he hadn't worked for quite some time, and we only had one vehicle, so he would drive me to work while he went and looked for work. Um,
Wow.
and drop me off at work and pick me up. So I had called him, hysterically crying because, this is my baby. And he said, "Oh, therapists will say anything to keep the money coming in." And then he turns around and says, "Oh, he's just doing it for attention." So as as and this probably happened over maybe a series of maybe 4 weeks.
Mhm.
Because it was in between, it was not long after Christmas. Um, And then CPS got involved. And I went to pick my kids up from their dads, from my first husband. And CPS was there, and they said, my son told me that he didn't feel safe. And that just floored me, because I was just like, I don't understand. And I left brokenhearted without my children. And he got angry because I didn't force them to come home. And I told him, I said, if I would have forced them to come home, I would not be getting to see them anymore.
Yes.
And I can't do that as a mother. There's no way on God's green earth that could happen. So we found out that he had a plan on how to kill himself. So we had to hide all the knives, all the sharp objects. He had a gun that we had bought, and I had to take it apart and like scatter it throughout the house.
Wow.
And so I was able to get to see the boys because I had joint custody. So I was able to see them during the times that I was supposed to, but I had to go take my husband at the time somewhere where he couldn't be at home at the same time with them. So thankfully, my niece was okay with him coming and staying the night at her apartment. And I got the call one day that I found out the reason he was suicidal was because of Mike, because of my ex. And it just hit me like a whirlwind. And the kids weren't home. He was home. And I told him, that's it. I'm done. You need to get out.
Yeah.
He goes, well, just know if I leave, I'm not coming back. I said, I don't want you to come back. I said, you need to get out now.
Yeah.
And he goes, well, I don't have anywhere to go. I said, go to your brother's. Go to your brother's. He goes, I'm not going there. So he literally would not leave the house.
Wow.
So I went to work. He dropped me off at work. He picked me up the next day. The next day at work, he picked me up, and we were driving to my niece's because I was going to get my boys. And when I dropped him off, it was just, I looked at him. It was just utter disgust. It was, I can't even stand the sight of you at all.
Yeah.
And I dropped him off. I called my niece and I said, hey, I really hate to put you in this position, but I'm not coming to get him. So I left him at my niece's apartment. She was perfectly fine with it. She said, I've got it from here. Don't worry about it. You do what you have to do. So I was very thankful for her. So I went and I picked my boys up. I went home and I changed the locks.
Wow.
Started packing his stuff. The next day I had a plan because we only had the one vehicle.
Yeah.
I had dropped the kids off at school, dropped by then we had our son together. So I had 4 kids. I dropped our son off at my mom's and went to my girlfriend's house that I worked with and left the vehicle there. And I rode with her into work because I wasn't sure what his reaction would be. And I just started working, and he calls me and he's like, "Did you forget something?" And I said, "No." And he's like, "That's okay. I can get in. I can get home on my way home." I said, "Well, you can find your way home, but you're not going to get in."
Yeah.
And he goes, "Well, I made a copy of the key." And I said, "Well, I changed the locks last night." He decided to say a few colorful words of how to describe myself at that time that were not very nice. And the sound in his voice, I'd never been afraid of him physically the whole relationship ever. It was always just that mental abuse. But when I did that to him, he snapped. And I worked at a doctor's office. We locked the office down because I was truly afraid of what he was going to do. I had police follow me to my house and make sure that he hadn't broken in. But I was, you have to get to that point. And sometimes you can get to that point, but staying there is the bigger issue. It's the hardest part.
Definitely. So he just stayed at your niece's house. Did he find a place?
So he was there for, I think, 2 days, and his brother came to get him.
Okay.
He ended up at his brother's. And I told his brother, I said, "You need to come get his stuff or I'm putting it on the curb." I mean, I was very, I guess, lucky in an aspect that I was able to make that that break and truly not look back.
100%.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it was because I had been able to truly see a lot of the truths.
Yeah.
And then, of course, with my children are my world.
Yeah.
And, knowing that one of my kids wanted to leave this world because of someone that's supposed to have protected them.
Yeah.
And, it made me feel like a bad mother because I didn't.
Yeah.
And of course, I was never there when things like that would happen. So that was very difficult. And, he took true advantage of me working. I had to work 2 jobs. I worked over 70 hours a week,
Wow.
7 days a week, most of the time.
And he wasn't working at all.
No. And
wow.
a lot of the abuse with the boys would happen when I wasn't home.
Wow.
And they would tell me about it, and I would confront him. And of course, they're 9, 10 years old. And my youngest son, or my middle son, was 8, 6, or 7, 8 at the time. And he would say, "Oh, I was just joking," or "That's not how I meant it." And of course, at that age, that's understandable. You can kind of see how a kid can misconstrue what an adult says.
Yeah.
So I found out later, when they would tell me that, and I would confront him, it would be 10 times worse the next day when I wasn't there.
So, wow. Oh, because he got in trouble.
Yeah, because I confronted him about it. And so they stopped telling me.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And my oldest, she was 13 at the time, and she would try to protect her brothers, and he would threaten her.
Wow.
And they didn't feel like they could really there was no voice that they had.
Wow.
So I'm still that's still a lot of heaviness on my heart with that. But thankfully, it didn't get to even worse than what it could have been.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love that you're sharing that, because I think a lot of times mothers or fathers, depending on who the narcissist is, don't realize what could be happening behind closed doors. And we have to remember that this abuse is invisible.
Yes.
It's just words. A lot of times it's tonality, it's threats, and it can do so much damage to ourselves as much as our young ones. So I so appreciate you being vulnerable and talking about that, even though, it shines, a light on your motherly abilities, but that's just the reality of it. And when you have somebody that you're in a relationship with, you want to trust them. Right. You want to trust that they're being true. And who would think that they're threatening children? That's not like on our radar to be like, people are threatening children. So I so understand where the confusion would be for you. I want to ask, as far as him leaving, because this is the biggest issue, and I'm sure you know this. You talk to other women who are in narcissistic relationships, and the biggest issue is leaving. You even said, like, I knew I was never scared of him physically, but then he left. There was tones of voices, there was nervousness, you were scared. It's a scary time. So when you finally confronted him, he left, you lock yourself down at work, and then a duration of weeks or months go by. What did that look like? How did he react? How long did it take for it to kind of settle? You said that you have a child with him. So how did that journey go from like the initial to however long it took for things to kind of settle? Not that they ever settle, but
yeah. Well, I think I was on the lucky end of this versus a lot of the things that a lot of the women on the page that I try to help support deal with. So after I had kicked him out and changed the locks, he had already found another woman. Actually, he already had that woman before I kicked him out. So he already had that
supply.
He already had that safety net.
Yeah.
So he was like, oh, well, she's gone. I'll just move on to this one and
Wow.
not worry about it. He saw our son. The last time he saw our son was April 5th of 2009, which was, he only saw him twice after we had after I kicked him out.
Wow.
After that day, he has not seen him since.
Wow.
He took off and went out to Tennessee, and I couldn't get my divorce final. And then come to find out, he, reacquainted with someone else and was going to remarry them. And so all of a sudden, he magically wanted that divorce pretty quick. So everything that I asked for in the divorce, which was primary and sole custody of our son, he was granted supervised visitation only, contingent upon when, where, and how long I deemed necessary.
Wow.
He signed and walked away. So
he didn't say anything. He was totally fine with that.
Yeah. And he he actually has 3 other children older than my son.
Wow.
His oldest, he signed away rights.
Yeah.
And his the other 2, she took him to court to have his rights taken, and he just never showed.
Wow.
So the great state of Indiana just said, okay, check. And he was just gone.
Yeah.
So we, and I say this because I'm still in contact with, his second wife. I helped raise her 2 daughters also, that I still love dearly. But it was a blessing on us. It's a blessing on those kids.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have what I have to see on those pages every day.
Absolutely.
Of him, telling lies and, trying to belittle their mom and make them like him.
Yeah.
I can't, that's heartbreaking.
Absolutely. And I love this scenario because sometimes we make things out in our head to be way worse than they actually could be. I mean, this is a great example of it could have gone totally different. And it actually went like the best scenario possible.
Yes.
So set yourself up. Like you said, you had, some help, you had people kind of watching your back, you had people around you, set yourself up for safety. Yes. But a lot of times, or sometimes, it could go in an entirely different direction than you thought.
Yeah.
So I love that. My narcissist actually did something very similar. I actually helped him find a new supply, which I still to this day feel so much guilt for. I actually encouraged it, and I pushed it, and I massaged it, and I made sure that all the lines were. So I just basically handed him, another supply because there was no way out.
Right.
She, I tried to warn her. She was already involved, but I, kind of coerced it and so that I could exit. And I knew, but you can't tell somebody like they're a narcissist, run away. They don't believe you. The one conversation that I did have with her, just kind of warning her a little bit, she went back to him and he came back to me and he's like, why are you trying to sabotage, this new thing that I'm trying to start, blah, blah, blah. And I was able to walk away, clean slate, no contact immediately. Boom. Just the last time I heard from him. It was fantastic. So sometimes I thought, oh my gosh, it's going to be horrible. It's going to be this whole thing, text message, because that's the way it was in the past. But same as you, once they have another supply, a lot of times they just disappear.
Yeah.
A lot of times they just disappear. Can you give some examples? I don't know about your specific, but I dealt with a lot of PTSD. Can you give some examples of some of that you are possibly dealing with?
Yeah. So a lot of it is like, I just had one just the other night. It's actually from what a friend of mine told me. It was a really good movie, but I couldn't make it out of the first part of it. It's Acrimony. And it was just a lot of that slow undertone of trying to, it resonated so much because he was just like, so this is just all about him. It's all about him and what she could do to help him. But it was the way he would manipulate it to where it would work. And I made it maybe 30, 40 minutes into, maybe I was bawling. And I was like, I shut it off. I was like, I can't do this. It was horrible.
Where's that at? Is that Netflix or?
It might be on Netflix. I found it on, I've got Dish Network. So I found it on that.
Acrimony.
Acrimony. Acrimony. So I know that MAID is a big topic on a lot of the chat rooms that I've seen. I was like, if I can't make it 40 minutes into this movie, I don't think I'll be able to handle that one. 100%. So even, I mean, this is 2021, so we're looking at 12 years out, and there's still so many things that just snap you right back, and it's like you're right back there again, and it's so raw.
Yeah.
Like somebody screaming, a loud noise, somebody hitting a wall. I mean, it still makes me cringe. It makes me jump.
Yeah.
Certain ringtones on phones, because I know people, I'm so glad someone else agrees, because I mean, it's like you hear that tone and you remember what those text messages were and how horrible they were to read. And it just brings all of that back, and it brings back all of that distrust, and it's just so difficult, but I just usually kind of have to take that deep breath and just kind of take a step back. But a lot of the stuff on TV now, it seems like there's so much more awareness of it, which is really great for those that are in it, and hopefully helps open their eyes to see that they're in it, because they may not know, like I did and like you didn't.
Yeah.
So, but a lot of that is very triggering for me. There's still a whole lot of those years that I've not spoken out loud.
Yeah.
Just because when you speak it, it's truth. It's there. You can't take it back. Yeah. And then once you speak it, you've got to deal with it. Yeah. So that's kind of what I've been doing on my journey is, pulling out those truths and speaking them out and dealing and, healing from it.
Yeah. And I appreciate you saying that the PTSD is still so real. I was also triggered yesterday. And I coach people. I have clients that I coach through, healing through after narcissistic abuse. And something was just said just the right way, the right tone. And I composed myself. I was trying to do the deep breathing, but I felt my eyes like welling up with tears and the emotions coming up. And I had to like calmly and slowly exit my way to a bathroom. We were with people. Yeah. To like calm myself. I had to like stand and like in front of the mirror for a few minutes and like recompose and like bat my eyes and breathe. So I totally relate to that. And women should realize that that is very real. And it doesn't mean anything's wrong with you. It doesn't mean that you're not healing. It's just you have to be patient with your body.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your mind is very fragile.
Yes.
Very fragile.
Yes, 100%. How have your children been affected during this?
I know that my oldest son does still have nightmares about him coming back. And I think, although, especially my boys will definitely not admit that, I think that they've got a lot of self-worth and self-esteem issues. My oldest, my daughter, actually ended up in a relationship with a narcissist. So just because I think a lot of that lack of self-worth, lack of self-esteem, the things that he put her through also affected her more than what I think she and I both realized, or even that she wanted to vocalize. which is hugely plausible too. But I'm very thankful that she was, I was there for her. My current husband was also there for her to help her have that strength to walk away and to see what he truly was. And now she's married to a wonderful man. So
yeah,
that's great.
yes. How did you handle that? Did someone have to point it out to her, or did she kind of point it out to you? How was that handled?
Um, it was she and I are very, very close. I mean, she's like she is my person. And hopefully she thinks the same way about me still, but,
Yes, yes.
you never know. But she tells me everything. So she would tell me about the issues that they were having, and how he was always drunk. And when they would go out, she was paying everything, everything. And I was
Wow.
like, it was, the controllingness, the jealousy, all of it. I was like, and I would use, and I guess I'm thankful that I was able to have the examples of my ex-husband to say, hey, remember when this would happen to me?
Yeah.
And she would be like, oh my gosh, mom, yes. So I think that kind of helped open her eyes. We try to I kind of joked with her. I was, when she was getting married, I said, we're supposed to set the example of what you're supposed to do. Well, I was like, in that marriage was the poster child of what you're not supposed to do. So I've shown you what not to do. So run the total opposite direction.
100%. 100%. Do you want to read the comment from Lauren really fast?
Oh, where's that at? Oh, there it is. I'm glad that, yeah, it's really hard, when you're trying to get that validation, and it helps to have that, because at least then you have that start. You know where to start. You know that it wasn't you. You know that this was truly something that was done to you.
Yeah.
So hopefully, I hope she keeps going with it. It's a long road. It's a long road, but it's a beautiful journey on the other side. It really is.
Yeah, 100%. She said, I'm ready for a political action committee.
I'll
For
tell
real.
you what, I I am a firm believer in, this year has kind of taught me a lot. And you've got these men that physically abuse women, and now police officers can go in, and if they see the abuse, they'll immediately take them to jail.
Yep.
You can't see mental abuse.
Yep.
And these men are free to do it over and over and over.
Yep.
And it's like, where is the justice on our end?
Yep.
And there's really not.
Yeah.
And it's disheartening.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's hard to even explain, like even just explaining it to anybody,
Yeah.
police or any, you just feel like an idiot talking about it. It's like the
Yeah.
way that he said it.
Yes.
It's like, how do you put that into vocabulary words to really get the feeling for them to understand it? It's
Right.
very, very difficult unless you're like a doctor where you can like scientifically break it down as to how our minds work.
Right.
But yeah, and a lot of times we're the ones that look like we're crazy because we're the ones that are emotional and crying while we're talking. While
Yes.
we're stone cold, straight faced, calm.
Yep.
It's insane.
Yeah. And there's nothing. They're free to keep doing it over and over.
Yep.
And
Crazy.
it's horrible. And they alienate you, and you cry to your friends, and you tell them how horrible it is, and they say, well, just leave.
Just leave.
And until you are in it,
Yeah.
you don't know what that's like. It's not, it's simple to say.
Yeah.
It's so simple to say, well, if you're not happy, just leave.
Yeah.
It's the hardest thing to do when you have been mentally broken and beaten down. It's, you're not happy, but you still don't have that strength yet. I'll never forget it. Helen, she was my clinical supervisor, and I would come into work crying almost daily.
Wow.
Because he would have me so upset over whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And she's like, you're not done. I was like, yes, I am. I can't do it. And she'd say, no. She said, you'll know when you're done. I'm like, I don't even know what that means. I know what that means now. And that is an amazing feeling to be able to get there. But gosh, getting there is such a hard journey. And especially when you have those friends that don't understand why you can't just walk away, and then you lose that support. You don't have that anymore.
100%. You are one of the strongest women I have ever known, Tracy. I love you, and you're helping others by telling your story.
Yes, that's my race buddy.
Yes, girl. Then they say, be careful who you have kids with. Thanks.
Yes.
So
Oh, kids are a blessing. They truly are. But
yeah.
you are literally saddled with that person for the rest of your life. And
Yeah.
the sad part is most of the narcissists that, I got lucky. I was very lucky. I think I am in a minority of having a child with a narcissist that just said,
Walk
right,
away.
it's okay. I'll just go get another family. It's all right.
Yeah.
So I was very thankful for that. And I'm still thankful for that. And he is remarried to a woman that has children. And I pray for them all the time, because even though, just like you, he's not my problem anymore.
Yeah.
But I still don't ever wish this on anybody.
Totally.
You know? But yeah, so yeah, definitely be careful who you have kids with.
Yeah.
And
100%.
it's, and pray they walk away.
Yeah. 100%. 100%. I kind of want to talk about some good things. What are some of the best freedoms you've had since leaving that? Breath of fresh airs.
Yes. Not looking over your shoulder.
Yeah.
Being able to go out with your friends and not have your phone going off every 5 minutes asking, where you at? What are you doing? When you coming home? Or intentionally starting a fight while you're out so you're in tears and you can't enjoy yourself.
Absolutely.
Being able to turn the music up and just dance in your house with your kids. I know that sounds crazy, but if you even ask my husband today, he walked in on me one day and that's what I was doing. I had the radio up and was dancing. It's you can dance. You dance in your underwear, I guess.
Yeah.
Like they say on Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah.
Because it's the most freeing feeling. It's that freedom of being able to go, hey, let's go to the park today, and just go to the park.
Yeah.
It's that wonderful feeling of just no judgment.
Yeah.
No repercussions.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about, well, I went and did this, but it's going to be really bad when I get home, which was a lot of times that I had to deal with. But I wanted to go out and I wanted to have fun. So I just dealt with my repercussions when I got home for a little while until it just got too bad. But,
too much. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's those things it's those small things that I think is the most freeing.
Yeah. Yeah. I can totally relate to the phone thing, because that was the biggest thing. Anytime I wasn't with him, my phone was dinging or chirping or ringing literally every 5 to 10 minutes with something.
Yes.
Anything that he could think of. There's times when he would call just to ask where his socks were. It's like,
yes,
in the sock drawer.
Yes.
And then it's like, well, what about that one pair that I really like that I want to wear? Where's that one? And it's like, dude, I'm out. I'm grocery shopping. I don't know. And there's been times when I would literally leave my cart because it was just so much. So much. I would leave my cart in the grocery store, leave.
Yes.
Go home to find the sock or something so silly like that, just to make it stop.
Yes. Yes. That happened to me quite often. And of course your friends look at you and really, you're running off.
Yeah.
He snaps and you jump and it's like, oh yeah. Yeah. Cause not jumping was worse than jumping.
Yeah. 100%. Really. It would mean hours and hours of berating at night until 3 or 4 in the morning.
Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Or have, like, what mine would love to do is pack up his stuff and fight with me all night and like go in the living room. I would fall asleep in the bedroom and then come back in, wake me up screaming at me, and then leave the room and continue the whole cycle all night.
Yeah.
To the point where I'm so mentally beaten down, I'm begging him to not leave.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll look back, I'm like, what?
Wow.
And then I put his clothes back up. I unpack his clothes from the garbage bags and I hang them up and I fluff them and I do everything. And it's, looking back, you're like, where did I go? Holy crap, where did I go?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The amount of freedom that it's almost, you can't even explain it when you've been in a relationship like that for even more than a couple of years. You don't realize the freedoms you've lost until you're free. And just the dumbest things, just the ridiculous things, like just being able to sit on my couch and just, be on social media freely, without any distractions or any guilt or shame or weirdness. The dumbest things, it's just a weight is just lifted immediately. 100%. I'm assuming that you dove into, social media, YouTube, videos, books. Do you have any recommendations for books or anything that, women can read that are in this?
Yeah. So one really good book is Loving Him When Loving Him is Hurting You, is a really, really good book. Grace is Greater. A friend of mine introduced me to that book this year. It was actually written by a local pastor here in Louisville, Kentucky. It was a very eye-opening book. And the one that I'm now reading for the second time is Forgiving What You Can't Forget.
Ooh.
That one, it's so funny because I became an addict on christianbookstore.com. So I blocked myself from it. But a friend of mine on Facebook said that she was giving that book to everybody for Christmas. And I messaged her. I was like, oh my gosh, this book is so awesome. I'm so glad that someone else is reading it too. And it's such a amazing book on her journey on healing.
Wow.
Through what she, now granted, it's not a narcissist, but it's still the same steps to heal yourself from a hurt.
Yeah.
And there's one passage in the book where she went to this counseling session. It was like I think it was an all day one. It's either all day or all weekend. I can't remember. But he had handed her index cards and said to put on there all the things that he did wrong to her. And when I read that, I was like, there's not enough paper in the world.
Yeah.
Nor is there a room big enough to lay them out in.
Yeah.
But it's that concept of you've got to be able to acknowledge what's happened to you in order for you to let it go and forgive and be able to truly move on. Because until you're able to do that, there's still that part of you that they hold on to. And if they knew that they still had that would just make them so happy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What were 3 things you did to start healing?
Reading those books was definitely one. Not long after we separated, I had a friend of mine that had a timeshare down in Florida, and I took the kids down for a week just to get away because they needed it as much as I did. Yeah. And I would spend the night on the beach. After they went to sleep, I'd go out and I'd sit on the beach and just listen to the ocean, listen to the peacefulness, and just kind of soak all that in. And I made a list of things that I wanted to do for me, things that I wasn't able to do or wasn't allowed to do. Yeah. So that was some of the definite things that I did that started that process. And then being able to reconnect with those friends that I lost and because of him alienating me from. So once I was able to connect with them and share a little bit of the journey and what happened, they felt horrible because they felt like they turned their back on me. But I was like, no, we're here now. Let's go from here forward and just move.
Yes. Have you forgiven your narcissist?
Yes and no. I have, as of right now, because every time I bring up a new episode, I guess the best way to word that, it brings all that hurt back up. And then I have to forgive him all over again. So I've taught my children, I'm like, you don't say hate. We don't hate anyone because hate only affects you. It doesn't affect the other person.
Yeah.
So forgiveness, you can forgive someone. It doesn't mean that it makes it okay for the things that they've done to you. It's the healing process for yourself. And so when I say yes and no, it's like, yes, I go back and forth because there's those years that's a lot of stuff in those years. Yeah. And like I said, there's a lot of things that I've not spoken to anyone, that they don't know what I've been through. My kids, a lot of them don't remember, which I'm very, very thankful for.
Wow. Yes.
So it's one of those things. I'm the one that holds the key to that secret. So when I'm ready to unlock that box and face that secret head on, I know I'm going to go back through that whole cycle again. But at the end, ultimately, I have to forgive, because if not, it's just going to keep festering.
Yeah. No, I totally understand that 100%. And I can relate. Sometimes it's a little bit more forgiveness on some days rather than other days.
Yeah. 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 Especially when the PTSD hits and it's all over again. And then you're just like, I don't know. I just, and then you're just like, you just gotta, it's like looking in the mirror. You just have to remember and have that visual of, I'm not there. I'm not there anymore. I'm not in that anymore. And you have to kind of just talk yourself back out of it. And once you do that, you're like, all right, we're good now. It's that same cycle over and over. And you sadly, people like us that have been through that, we will go through that for the rest of our life.
Definitely. I love that you're such a great example, though, as far as moving forward and doing your best to educate yourself and reading and taking in things that are helping you mentally, emotionally, because a lot of times we feel so down and out that we don't even want to take the time to do that. We're just so worn down and so tired. So I think it's imperative to do what you're doing and dive into a book, dive into a video of educating yourself on what that is, what that looks like, how to heal. And it reconfirms that you're not crazy.
Definitely. Definitely. Yeah. I mean, it definitely wasn't it's been a healing process for the past few years.
Yeah.
My current husband, he and I had some issues that we had to deal with because I never dealt with that stuff that happened to me. And I just shoved it down, I was like, oh, I'll just keep shoving it down. I don't have to deal with it. I won't worry about it. And it came out really big in our relationship. And I had to start addressing it, because if not, it was going to spiral this one too. And that's not healthy for me. It's not healthy for him. And it's definitely not healthy for my kids either. So definitely, it took some time to get to that point. Because a lot of times I think women, we see it and we know that it happened, but we figure, oh, we just won't talk about it. We'll just put it over here, put it in the corner. We'll put it in the closet, shut the door, and we don't have to address it anymore. But eventually that closet door busts open and the wrong time. And it all comes flooding back, and then you're a crying mess on the floor.
Yes.
So I think every woman needs to address those, but it's going to have to be in their time. You know, it may take a few years before they're even ready to address any of it.
Yeah.
I think they need to make sure that they're okay with that. That's the bigger thing, is you have to know what your limits are, and you have to know that, yeah, I'm not ready to address this yet. And that's okay.
Yes. Thank you.
It's okay to not be ready.
Yeah. Thank you. I agree. I so appreciate you taking the time to sit with us and share your story and your journey and where you are now. I think it's so imperative to realize that there is life on the other side.
Yes.
Just taking that step forward and realizing it, educating yourself, creating a plan, having a community around you. You know, you had a few people there that were, you know, supporting you and available to you. I do want to ask, what advice would you give to a woman that knows she's living with a narcissist, but can't seem to climb her way out of the grip of her abuser? What advice would you give her?
Start finding a plan, because the bigger thing, the hugest hurdle is recognizing that. And you know that too, is once you know that that's what you're up against, that's your first step right there. So your next step is definitely trying to make that plan, whether it's, I don't know, dump him off on somebody like I did. You know, hey, it might work. Or, you know, I know, like, here you've got the Center for the Women and Children. They now will help with emotional abuse also.
Wow.
So that is definitely a way to get out. Another one is to get a counselor to help you start being able to stand firm, because once you start standing up, they don't like that at all.
Yes.
So, you know, they tend to be like, wait.
Yeah.
So a lot of times, you know, I mean, I used to pray that he would just get up and leave, but that never happened for me, because that would have just been easier. But they won't walk away willingly.
Yeah.
But if you make it uncomfortable and unhappy for them to where they know that they're not in that control anymore, they're going to start finding their next victim.
Somebody else.
That's what we are. We are a victim. Yeah. So, you know, try to have those friends that are understanding and know what you're going through. Even if it's somebody that's in, you know, a narcissist support group. If you have somebody there that's, you know, that you could talk to, or that you need to see, you know, you've at least got something that's there.
Keep going. I don't know what happened. Sorry.
I'm running the show now. She put the wrong person in charge. But no, I think those support groups, and that's kind of where I kind of hang out. That's where you found me, which so thank you for, you know, even putting this little seed in my brain, because I never really thought about it. Yeah. So I definitely thank you for reaching out to me. But I try to, you know, I've had women, I'm like, you know, if you need to talk, message me. Yeah. You know, I'm more than happy to talk to anybody, to offer some advice. Some, you know, even if it is just an ear, you know, sometimes we just need to let that out and get it out, and just so we can take a breath.
Absolutely. Some validation, even that what we're seeing is true.
Yeah.
Do you recommend a room? Do you recommend them contact you? How could someone find you if they wanted to kind of get your input?
They could go to my Facebook page, or they could even shoot me an email. I mean, I'm on my email all the time too. I think I'm trying to remember. Hang on, I got to look at the name of the group. There's a couple of them that I am in. They're closed groups. So, the narcissist. Oh, that was a way wrong thing to click on. No, it was the Narcissist Slayer. So I think that should be equivalent to Buffy the Vampire Slayer. The narcissist abuse support group is one of them. And then there's narcissist negotiators with Rebecca Zung. She seems to be really, really insightful.
Wow.
So I'm definitely hanging out on those two. So
awesome.
But yeah, they're more than welcome to shoot me a message on Messenger or send me an email.
Awesome. I love that. Thank you so much. And like I said, thank you so much for hanging out with me for the last hour and giving us so much awesome goodness. Do you have any closing thoughts before I close up?
Keep your head up. Definitely. Know that this is just a season and you are definitely strong enough to be able to get out and survive on the other side.
Yes, I agree 100%. Definitely. Well, thank you so much again, Tracy. I so appreciate you sharing your story. For those of you that are watching live now, we appreciate the support. We appreciate the comments. For those of you watching on the replay, make sure you hashtag replay so that I know to drop in and say hello to you. Thank you for joining us here on the Her Aversion platform. If you have an amazing story to share of struggle to triumph, be sure to reach out to me here or at heraversion.life. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria, and I'm so grateful to be sharing a platform that allows people to share their truth and inspire others, do something awesome today.